All right, welcome back to Getting Sober, again. My name is Jay, and today we're going to talk about 10 psychological reasons why we binge drink alcohol. But first, if you care about your own sobriety journey as much as we do, we have hundreds of videos on the topics of sobriety and self-improvement. So make sure that you're subscribed to this channel. All right, let's get started. A recent study titled The Neuroscience of Addiction found that chronic alcohol use can lead to a shift in drinking motivation from seeking pleasure, aka positive reinforcement, to avoiding withdrawal symptoms and avoiding negative emotions, aka negative reinforcement. Now, there comes a time in most of our lives where we're going to find ourselves binge drinking alcohol. Sure, at first it's mostly fun, but then later in life it becomes a crutch for coping with everyday life. And it goes without saying that a lot of us in early sobriety may think negatively about quitting alcohol. You may think to yourself that I can't be the same fun person that I am when I'm sober, or I just don't know how to socialize or be around other people sober. So let's quickly go over the psychology of the 10 main reasons why we gravitate towards binge drinking alcohol. And you'll see exactly how each of these reasons directly ties into the next. All right, reason number 1 is boredom. I think at some point in our lives we drink excessively just because, well, we're bored. And we're just looking for something to do or a way to pass the time or escape. But I always want to remind you that today, there are more ways to entertain yourself now more than ever. There's more hobbies, more sports, there's more shows to watch, more movies to watch. There's more music to listen to, more books to read, and new ways of learning self-improvement. So if you find yourself saying that sobriety is boring, well, consider the possibility that you kind of painted yourself into a corner by making drinking your main hobby, which is kind of boring. But understand that you just need to challenge yourself just a little bit to find something new to do other than drinking. I always like to say that there's only 3 things that you can't do sober. Number 1, drink alcohol. Number 2, get drunk. And number 3, get caught driving while intoxicated. And if you're binge drinking alcohol just because you're bored, then you're probably drinking because of reason number 2, which is to seek pleasure or reward. That's because alcohol stimulates the brain's reward system, creating feelings of pleasure and reinforcing the desire to drink ... again. The dangerous part of alcohol or any substance is alcohol can initially provide a sense of accomplishment and euphoria without having done anything to earn that feeling. And if you're seeking pleasure or reward in the bottom of a bottle, then you're most likely dealing with reason number 3, which is coping with stress and anxiety. Many of us use alcohol as a way to self-medicate, seeking temporary relief from daily stress and from daily anxiety. We can easily find ourselves leaning on alcohol's depressant effects because it feels like it calms us down. And when we find ourselves coping with stress and anxiety, well, what happens when we go in public? A lot of us get social anxiety, right? Alcohol can lower our inhibitions, that's true. And it also gives us a feeling of confidence, making it seem like the go-to solution for every one of those social situations. But then what happens? Alcohol just becomes the solution for all situations. Slowly but surely, you forget how to even socialize sober, and then you'll prefer not to be sober. Sound familiar? When we give the keys to our social life over to alcohol, to take us to and from each social situation, the next thing we know, we're using alcohol not only for the good times, but the bad times and every time in between. And when we start to become dependent on alcohol, it erodes our self-confidence and we can easily develop low self-esteem. Once a person develops a sense of low self-esteem, they can easily find themselves often relying on alcohol. I know, me too. To feel more confident and accepted and seeking temporary validation from others who also drink. Heavy drinking can cause people to act in ways that are contrary to their personal values, like singing Bohemian Rhapsody at karaoke in front of a room full of strangers, knowing damn well that you can't hit those high notes even in the shower. This conflict between actions and personal values can cause large amounts of self-esteem damage, like having that video of you trying to sing karaoke shared in the group thread the next morning. And if your self-esteem is damaged, this will naturally lead to loneliness and isolation. Alcohol can provide a temporary sense of connection or comfort for those who feel lonely or isolated. Personally, I remember when I was drinking heavily and going to the bar every single day, I felt like I was just going to the bar so I didn't seem like I was lonely. And when you think about it, it's kind of a miserable way to live, right? Because on one hand, you're internalizing being lonely, and on the other hand, you think that you're doing something about it by going out and putting yourself into a social situation. And then maybe after a while you start drinking at home because, well, it's cheaper. And just like that, you start the long and lonely journey into self-isolation. Which brings me to the next point. The seventh psychological reason why we binge drink alcohol is we may have a little bit of unresolved guilt and shame. When your life is in a rut and you don't know what to do or how to get yourself out of it, it's very likely that you're drinking excessively to escape those feelings of regret, of self-blame, past mistakes, or your current actions and behaviors. And then this quickly leads to emotional numbing. A lot of us use alcohol to avoid feeling difficult emotions such as anger, grief, or shame. A lot of us have or will use alcohol to detach from emotional pain. But as we know, drinking only temporarily puts our life's ambitions, emotions, and responsibilities on hold. In other words, heavy alcohol use stunts our personal growth. And the more we drink, the more it leads to feelings of depression and hopelessness. A lot of us use alcohol to escape the feelings of sadness, of hopelessness, and despair associated with depression. When the sad reality is, alcohol is the key that continues to unlock and open us to those feelings of depression and hopelessness. It's like using water to put out a grease fire. It seems like the thing to do in the moment, when in reality, it just makes things worse. And if we're feeling anxious, depressed, and hopeless with low self-esteem, there's a good chance that we're dealing with some form of trauma and PTSD. People who've experienced traumatic events may turn to alcohol to numb emotional pain, to suppress memories, and to manage symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder. It's also important to note that those of us dealing with alcohol use disorder may also be dealing with underlying or undiagnosed mental health issues. But it's important to know that we can easily get used to pain. We can easily get used to walking through life with a limp and finding ourselves angry with everyone who seems to be running on by. I think a lot of people think that the only way to get PTSD is from being a combat veteran or from being in a horrific accident, when the truth is, it can come from losing a job, from defaulting on your loans. It could come from verbal or emotional abuse, from illness, from childhood neglect and infidelity, amongst many other reasons. But I want to remind you that when you numb the pain from traumatic events with alcohol, you also numb the joy from those good memories too. I'm going to say that one again. When you numb the pain of traumatic events with alcohol, you also numb the joy from good memories too. Think about all the times that you had a wonderful evening and you can't even remember what happened the next day, because that's the price that we pay for binge drinking alcohol. You should get more out of your well-deserved vacation than just knowing that it was expensive and cost a lot of money. You should be able to celebrate your birthday and be able to answer what you did, where you went, who was there, and the conversations that you had. And yes, giving up alcohol may come with feeling some of those feelings that you spent years hiding from in the bottom of a bottle. But at some point, we have to resolve those feelings, to sit with those feelings, to just observe them so that they become less painful and less scary over time. To just look in that box in the attic of our minds, you know, the box that says, do not open under any circumstances. Everything that's happened to you happened in the past when you were younger and less prepared to handle them. We didn't and we couldn't possibly think that we would ever be able to face those feelings. But sometimes all we need to do is get the poison out of our cup, out of our body, and out of our minds. To just be able to sit next to that big scary box to realize that it used to seem so big when I was so small. Maybe your pain and your trauma happened when you were a child, and now that you're an adult, you can hold that big scary box from that traumatic event in the palm of your hand and realize that it's not so big and it's not so scary after all, because you're bigger now and you're braver now and you're more capable today than you once were. And then maybe after a little bit of time, you can peek inside of that not so scary box and simply observe the contents. And then maybe after a few more days or a few more weeks or maybe even a few more months, you can lay those contents out on the table and let them air out, which is exactly what it means to process those difficult feelings and to process those difficult emotions. To allow what you perceived to be very painful to eventually be observed as a little less painful. To allow what has happened to just be what's already past. To let the past no longer hold you hostage from being who you were meant to be in the future. And this is exactly why I've stressed the importance of cognitive behavioral therapy while you're attempting to get sober. Cognitive behavioral therapy is recognized as one of the most effective forms of therapy to treat addiction, alcohol use disorder, as well as all of those complicated emotions that you've refused to deal with for so long. Because until we get to the root of why we feel the way we do, and until we're able to acquire those better tools like we would in therapy to cope with our daily fears, our daily anxieties, our past traumas, and our past regrets, it's very likely that we'll keep using alcohol and other worse tools to push away the possibility of processing these complex emotions, to continue pushing away the possibility of personal and emotional growth, to continue to delay our much needed progress mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, and financially. And I believe that just because your life hasn't been exactly what you hoped it could be, that it doesn't mean that it can't be better than what it has been. And if you believe that you're on your way to finally healing, comment down below and say, I'm ready to heal. And I want to remind you of a very important quote that I mentioned in a previous video. Feel free to write it down. You don't have to be perfect to be better. I'll say it one more time. You don't have to be perfect to be better. So, what did you think of today's video? Did you learn a little bit more about the psychological reasons about why we binge drink alcohol? What are some of the reasons why you used to binge drink alcohol? And what's worked for you along your own sobriety journey? Tell everybody what's on your mind by leaving us a comment in the comment section down below. And oh, by the way, if you're looking for that link for cognitive behavioral therapy, check out the link for online therapy that you can do from the comfort of your own home in the video description down below. And I'll also put a link in the top corner of the screen right meow. If you haven't yet, don't forget to show your support for everybody here in this sobriety community by giving this video a thumbs up. But if you're ready to binge watch another one of our helpful videos, click on the link in the top corner of the screen. And with that, I want to wish you good luck on your self-improvement journey, and I will see you in the next video.
If you want to see another one of our videos, click here.